This is Jamie Austin, and welcome back to Real Estate of Mind, where we keep things real simple, talk about real investments, and we give you real answers. So we've kind of had a lot of feedback on the show, which has been fantastic. And I think the thing we want to focus on with Real Estate of Mind is we're just going to debunk the myths of real estate and make it a little more palatable, a little more chewable, a little tastier, and not so scary. Because that's really the whole point of this show, is to make sure that we give you information that's important, but also that you're not so scared to make that step into actually purchasing real estate. Today, my guest is Samantha Scherr. She's with Movement Mortgage. The beautiful thing about Samantha is we have done lots of deals together.
Yes.
And her little nickname in the office is Sam the Saver. And believe me, that is no lie. We've had deals that have fallen through at the last second with clients who wanted to work with other lenders. And then I call Sam and I'm like, Sam, can you save this? And you know what? I don't even think it's 9 out of 10. I think it's been 10 out of 10 so that she can actually save the deal. So I wanted to focus today on, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Movement Mortgage to start, and then we'll get into some questions and hopefully we'll have some callers call in.
Sounds great. Well, thanks, Jamie, for having me here.
Absolutely.
I'm Samantha Scherr. I started in the mortgage business in 2001. Worked for Countrywide for about 7 years and then went and got my MBA at USC.
Oh, a little underachiever.
Yes. I went to the right school. But anyway, then I did a little step in startup and then got back to the mortgage industry about 6 years ago. Started with Movement about almost 4 years ago. And I just love Movement. And the reason why I love it is because everything is pretty much done in-house. So
that's really important because sometimes when you outsource loans, like a lot of people don't know, they go directly to like Wells Fargo, and then it's passed off to another department, to an underwriting department.
And who knows where in
and
the
who
US.
knows where and when, and the timelines get crazy and you don't get an answer for 7 days. And this is what I found sort of unique about your company is that like I can get answers from you, like down the line to the very end of the deal, which is really
I'm not handing
crazy.
it off.
No.
I'm always aware of what's happening. And I really like to give my clients the white glove service so that like for that very reason, you're one of my clients, just like a buyer is one of my clients too.
Yep.
So realtors and buyers, I want to give them that white glove from start to finish.
Yep. And it shows. It really does. So I think, I don't know about you, but kind of what I'm sensing in the market anyway is like we're at the end of the year. Henceforth, my festive green. It's almost Christmas. What I'm kind of sensing is there is a lot of uncertainty in the market. I don't think that this is necessarily a new thing, but I think starting like last year, at the tail end of last year, we really noticed a big shift in the market, right?
Yes.
And, you know, things that were selling in 30 days are not selling in 30 days. They're taking 60 to 90 days. So, you know, the real estate market is always cyclical, right? So what I find is we just need to educate our clients on how no matter what market we're in, whether it's leaning towards a recession market or a really bullish market, there's always going to be real estate bought and sold because everybody has a need. It could be a job change. It could be like getting pregnant, needing more space because you're expanding your family. And it could just be that you're building your wealth portfolio, and real estate happens to be one of the best ways to build your wealth portfolio, right? So I wanted to talk to you because I know that we actually had discussed on how to like frame 2020 because there's also an election coming up. Right. No matter which way you vote or which idea you've got going on, until there's usually a settlement in where the leadership is going for 4 years, we feel a little bit of a pullback from the market and a little bit of uncertainty because nobody's like, well, whoever gets into office, are they going to continue doing what they're doing, or is this new person going to benefit us real estate wise? So there's all of that wrapped around, and also into, we've had the lowest mark in unemployment history, right? And what we know from facts is that when you study the recession, there's always, it's almost an inverse thing. It's like when you get the lowest unemployment in history, there's going to be an uptick usually. And when that happens, that's when you know there's a recession coming around the corner, but you don't know it for usually 2 quarters where people are not making money, but sometimes you're in the recession and you don't know it.
Exactly. Until we have 2 quarters of negative gross domestic product, we won't know. So usually after 2 months we thought, oh, well, we were just in a recession, right? So yeah, you don't even know it till you're in it. And many buyers want to wait until after the recession because then home prices are just going to drop, right? And
no. And the other thing I know that you're really good about is when I talk to my clients about this, it's like, don't be afraid to go ahead and buy. the rate, even if it's a quarter of a point higher, the beauty of it is you can just refinance.
Anytime. I refinance all my buyers all the time. Anytime someone calls me or I'm looking at rates and I look at all my list of buyers and old closed clients, we'll look and see where the rates are. And if it's possible to refinance, you can refinance as many times as you want. Most people don't keep the same loan for 30 years.
That's right. And I even call my clients, it's also like a nice talking point with a client because it's like, look, have you looked in refinancing? And some of them, it's not even top of mind.
Right.
And then they're like, oh my God, you just saved me $500 a month on my mortgage.
Yes.
And that's a substantial amount of money saved, right?
Especially if you look at it over 30 years. If they really were to keep that loan for 30 years, that's a ton of money.
Yeah. It's in the tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, so that's really cool. So what are your top recommendations for buyers who are going to be potentially trying to get into the market in 2020? What would you recommend?
I would recommend that they speak to a professional like me just to make sure they're on track for buying. Because sometimes if you're self-employed and you haven't filed your tax returns to show a ton of income to the IRS, just to make sure you have a game plan. If you want to buy in 2020, you should definitely speak to someone just to make sure your financials are all in order. And if we need to wait until after you file taxes for 2019, let's say March or April, that you're prepared about how you need to do that.
Right.
Right.
I think it's what I find is that some clients, they start looking online and then they find the house and then they want to like rush in to buy it.
Right.
And they're like, as quickly as I know you work, there is so much validity to having a game plan.
Yes.
And it could be like, it might take 2 months to clean up your credit or to get some kind of income established to where you can prove that. And that just then lowers your interest rate.
Right. There's so many little guidelines with the investors that we have to adhere to, right?
Yeah.
So someone might have a second job for the last year, but we can't count that income unless they've had it for 2 years. So just having that initial talk, it doesn't cost anything. And it's just to make sure you're on track. Right.
Yeah.
And 2020 is going to be an interesting year. As far as interest rates, I kind of think they're going to stay about where they are. I mean, with the impending election, right? So I think 2020 is going to be a great year to buy. It's always a good time to buy.
Exactly. And always a good time to sell.
Yes.
And because what I'm finding is I think the next 10 years, we're going to see a huge amount of inventory turnover because boomers who have been in their houses for 30 years or more, it's too much upkeep. Right. And so we're really seeing a real shift in just the age of the market and what that's going to do to our market in terms of like product and inventory being out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's going to be, I think 10 years, like even investing and or buying and selling is going to be really become exciting, even more so than it has been in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. Explain how a buyer can purchase a property without 20% down. I know that some of I still have clients come in and their mindset is, I'm going to stay out of the market because I don't have 20% down.
Right. And who has
like hundreds to 200,000 in the bank just sitting there waiting. Right?
Exactly. It's so hard as a first-time home buyer to save enough for a down payment, let alone 20% down. I think they hear it from their parents, their grandparents, and they just always grown up with that mentality that you have to have 20% down because that's the way it always used to be, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, from when I started back in the business in 2001, it's been a long time. We've always had programs with low down. Right now, we have programs where you could put 0 down, which is technically like 1% of the purchase price. But I mean, all of these have, a give and a take, right? So
absolutely.
If you're putting low down, you're going to have a little bit higher interest rate.
Absolutely.
But if you can come up with 10%, that really gives you a really good interest rate. And it doesn't seem as overwhelming to try to get 10%. And it can come from a gift if you have a really great, rich uncle or a grandparent or friend that wants to help you with a gift that really helps first-time home buyers get in the game.
And that's fantastic because that was actually a question I have is what is gift money and how does it work? Yeah. Because there are parents who are trying to help kids out and, a down payment is significant even at 10%.
Right.
And so I know that there are parents like I've had many clients where their parents are buying them their first condo to be near the college so that they don't have to pay room and board for a dorm, but they want to get into the market and they're starting small, but then it just expands from there. So how does gift money work?
So depending on the program, you can get a gift from a family member, okay? And we would just make sure that gift donor has the money in their account. So we just make sure that they show us a bank statement showing that, let's say, $50,000 is in there for their 10 or 5% down payment, whatever they're going to be doing. And then they just wire those funds directly to escrow. And that is the cleanest, easiest way to do it. And most programs allow a gift. It just depends. Sometimes there's, different caveats.
Right. And so I know that at one time, and this was like years ago, but the funds used to have to sit in an account for 30 days. Is that still the same, or has it changed, or can you just show it?
Let's say grandma wants to give, her grandson a gift, right? Yeah. So long as her bank statement shows that money is in there, and it's not like, well, she just got a deposit for $50,000 and then she's going to give him the deposit for $50,000 for his down payment. That looks fishy. Right. But if it looks like, oh yeah, she's got 125 in there, she's going to put 50 and no large deposits.
Grandma's not selling hooch on the side. Right. So it's got to show up in a bank account, right?
Exactly. So the other thing that you were saying though is, let's say Mr. Buyer was purchasing a property and we had money that grandma gave him, but grandma didn't want to say that she gave this to him. Maybe there's some family thing or whatever. Yeah. That money has to be seasoned in his account for 2 months to be able to show that it's his money.
His money. Got it. Okay. So so it can be proof of
it can be a gift.
It can be a gift or whatever, but in the account for 2 months, or we have to show proof that it's in grandma's account.
Right.
Legitimately.
And then she just sends the money.
Okay, perfect. Great. Well, that's really good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So what are some of the funny things that you get across your desk? Or what are some of the crazy requests that you get? Because I know you and I, sometimes if we're going to do a charity event or whatever, you and I just crack up at clients who think they can get qualified in 1 minute. Or they want to know, they demand something now, but then you've actually had a lot of really interesting scenarios come across your desk. So can you share with our listeners
funny things? I don't know. I mean, just the demands from buyers. They just can be crazed with this. It's such an emotional process, right? So they get so angry about things because, there's so many people that touch that loan before it closes.
That's exactly
right.
If
I'm going to give you $100,000, $500,000, $1 million of loan, that's a lot of money. We have to make sure that it's gone through the process and there's a standard way of doing it, right?
That's right.
And many of these buyers just think that they can I had one this week who said, well, I want to make sure I have my clear for closing. I need an email from the underwriter. I said, underwriters don't write emails to buyers, ever. There's a reason why they sit behind a desk and underwrite loans all day. They don't want to talk to buyers. They are not that personality.
Exactly.
So that was a strange request. But I don't know. I mean, many people want to.
Just the demands.
They're very demanding.
I think that's very true. A lot of people don't know. It's the same. It's the same on my side. Mm-hmm. It's if you really look at a transaction in its totality, there's so many pieces of the puzzle that have to move and work together.
And all that happens before it even gets to me that you do, right?
That's right?
There's so many little things.
There's a process. There's a buyer consultation. There's getting on the same page. I recommend then a lender.
Right.
Then once we find the property, it's putting together the offer, negotiating that, then starting the loan, ordering the appraisal. Then you got to open escrow, and then escrow has their own documents. So there are probably no less than 10 to 15 players on any given transaction, even though you might think there's a lender,
right,
an escrow company,
and a realtor.
Yeah, that's it. No, there's so many cogs in the wheel, right? And if one thing goes off, so that's where I think your skill set and even, my skill set over the years I've acquired is just really staying the course. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important for anybody out there to really, there's so much value in hiring a professional. I don't even care if it's a $200,000 loan. No matter where you are in the country, that's still a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And you're not about to go through that process just winging it, And it's even with some of the lenders that are I'm going to throw out, I'm not going to say the brand, but it's one of those that's call us and we'll get you the lowest rate, da-da-da-da-da. And they're not even in the state of California.
Right.
And it's a teaser rate. And then they don't really explain the fullness of what you're signing and what you're signing up for. So I've had many clients think after speaking to a lender locally, they're going to go off and they're going to try this loan here. And I'm I'm telling you, they're not, you're going to get fees that they're not disclosing up front.
Right.
And then they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, oh yeah, your mortgage. Oh yeah, well, it's only gone up $700. I'm sure that's okay.
Right. Because they didn't know property taxes in LA County are 1.25%.
Exactly. So I said, you have to have the knowledge. The knowledge is power. Right?
Yes.
So this is why having a pro to negotiate and navigate the process is so valuable.
Yes.
I say it over and over again. But even the more complex that loans are, because there's so many different products out there.
Yeah.
So you really have to have somebody that knows what they're talking about to actually guide you properly.
Exactly. Not everybody is a straight W-2
Exactly. It could be non-stated
salaried.
income or whatever, which means like you don't have a W-2. You're not employed by a company where their taxes are taken out. So your setup is a little bit different, and you need to have somebody that really can also think outside the box to get the loan done. Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of that happen as well. And it's like, I'm all for everybody checking out different lenders and finding out the right fit for you. So I just usually even know personality-wise, like there's like, but I just have to say that usually, Sam, there's not many that it's not a good fit for.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah,
Jane.
no, it's true. But it's, it's just because I think what is also really important is you also make the loan process, you bite-size it. There's no overwhelming quality about it. Whoops.
Right.
No overwhelming quality where somebody just goes, oh my God, that was so much information. I don't think I can get through it.
Right.
Yeah. No. It's like little bit by little bit.
We're going to get to this, and then after this, we're going to do that.
And the thing I tell them on my end is whatever Sam asks for or whatever the lender asks for, that's important.
Yeah.
Get it done right away. That's all I ask.
It's not for discussion.
No, it's just
you have to have
get it done. And I said, and sometimes banks, even though you go, I just gave you my monthly statement just 2 weeks ago. Sometimes they're going to want it again. Yeah. It's not logical all the times, but it's just like, this is a process that you have to follow.
Right.
And if you want to close on the house, this is what we got to do.
Right.
Right. So what are the advantage of using a brokerage over like a traditional lender, say like Wells Fargo or Chase or whatever? So
exactly. I think a lot of it goes back to that white glove service that we discussed at the beginning, right? If you call Wells Fargo, you're calling a call center, or any of those big banks, you're calling a call center, who knows where, right? They don't know you. They don't know anything about your transaction. Your hair might be on fire because the seller told you that you're going to be having to pay a daily amount every day for every day you're late, right? And the call center,
they're like, okay.
They don't have anything about this transaction. Ask your name, your loan number. When are you closing? Well, it was supposed to be yesterday, right? They don't know. So I think dealing with a broker or a direct lender like somebody like me is that people will be able to call anytime, really, weekends. I'm available, evenings too, and just be able to feel that sense of comfort. It's such an emotional process, knowing that you've got someone on your side all the time, leading you through start to finish. And, you're not going to have to deal with all of the, different things having to do with a big bank where they lose stuff or there's so many delays with big banks.
Those files
and they just don't
huge.
care.
Yeah, and they don't care, and files are huge, and they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, did I tell you I have 20 files on my desk?
Right.
And that buyer
I'll get to it when I get to it.
And the buyer didn't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they're not important.
Right.
Their deal is the most important deal, and usually the most important purchase that person will make in a lifetime.
Exactly.
And hopefully we get them through that process, and then they want to do another one. But at the same time, you're right. It's such an emotional journey that I find that people are like, if they can't reach you, they're nervous. They end up, then the stress kind of trickles down to me, to Escrow, to everybody.
And it's so draining.
Right? It is, right.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, okay, how do we smile through this one today?
Right. Oh my gosh. Wine.
Right.
Yeah.
Wine. Lots of wine. Lots of wine at 5:00. What do you think is the most common mistake that people make with the lending process? I have a couple of ideas myself, but I want to hear it from you.
I think they just assume, right? You hear those commercials, right? Push button, get mortgage. Like, it's so easy. I had a client today email me, this is how much I make, this is how much is my debt, this is this, and this. Do you see any issues getting qualified? I'm sorry, but I haven't looked at any of your stuff.
Right.
So they just assume it's so simple. It's like, yeah, I looked at it. Sure, here's your $400,000. No. So I just don't think they realize there's an entire process. They've taken so much time to try to find the realtor that they want to work with, right? And find the home. And they're like, great, I found the house. I'm ready. Here's my down payment. But it just, there's a whole process that they're unaware. And they make a lot of assumptions that, oh yeah, I'm self-employed, but I make $10,000 a month. And then I look at their stuff and really they only show $3,000 a month. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that house that they've now envisioned themselves, cooking Thanksgiving dinner in and celebrating the holidays in with their family is now no longer attainable. And we have to, go back to the drawing board and see what we could do to make it happen.
Exactly. So that again, goes back to the process.
There is a plan. Let's have a plan. Let's have just a quick talk, back of the napkin figures, but at least to talk to a professional.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because you're right. I get many people like, and some people are not as forward about coming with their information about their finances.
They're very private.
Very private. Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, I told you my salary. I told you what I make. And I told you what I owe on my credit cards. Isn't that all you need? No, it's not. Now, the one thing I will say about movement mortgage, which is a little bit different, is that you really front load the transaction
100%,
so much so that when it comes to me, I know that they are not only pre-qualified, which we went over this in one of the previous shows. They're not pre-qualified. They're pre-approved.
Well, they're underwritten.
And they're underwritten,
it's
which
beyond,
is a huge difference. They're ready to go to loan immediately.
Right.
The lender's ready to plug in the numbers and order the loan and order the appraisal right away.
Right. So all of that process that we've been talking about, all these different hands and different people that touch the loan, we would do that all before you find the property.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So that way they know if there's an issue with their self-employment, maybe they wait until tax time to file their tax returns and then they're ready to go, right?
Right.
But we have our underwriters look at the entire package of the borrower before they find the property, ideally.
Mm-hmm.
That way they know without doubt they're going to get this loan.
Right, exactly.
And then it really helps when they make an offer and you as the agent could say to the seller, listen, this person's already done all their homework. We're like cash buyers.
That's right. Right. Because we could close in less than, usually.
In about 2 weeks.
In about 2 weeks, which normally what you have is you have an industry standard of about 30 days. And it doesn't always have to take that. But the caveat is sometimes when you put 30 days and you're working with a lender that doesn't quite go to the underwriting stage, sometimes you're at the 12th hour. It's day 21 of the loan contingency. And you find out the lender can't do the loan.
Right. I got 2 of those last week.
Yeah.
And then I'm
which is
to
where
try
Sam
to
the
save
saver,
it, right?
Exactly.
We saved it, but the client has to put more down, and yet they don't have the money down. And had they just sent me the loan before they went and found this property, I could have told them right away that the underwriter said you can't do it. But their lender didn't
tell them that.
They just didn't really know because they just look at the documents, but it doesn't go to an underwriter for most other banks. I mean, 99% of other people out there who are lenders do not have an underwriter look at their loan.
That's huge. Because that makes a difference. The underwriter, it's like you're courting somebody when you're getting your pre-approval and your pre-qualification. And then it's like when you're going to underwriting, you have actually put a ring on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like now then we know the deal is solid. We're going through and we're going forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it also really helps too, I'm sure for you, Jamie, when you're trying to compete among other buyers. And because you're such an amazing professional, you always I feel like you always fight for your buyer. If they really want that place, you get it for them.
Yes, it's true.
But at the same time, if you're competing with a cash buyer and it's a cash buyer and a finance buyer with movement, that finance buyers can really compete with the cash buyer because cash buyers close in 10 days, movement can close in
12.
about
12 or 14.
Exactly.
So it is a definite negotiating point that is definitely beneficial to the buyer.
Yeah.
And it's even helped me get buyers into escrow that maybe didn't have as much down.
Right.
And we maybe didn't even offer as high.
Exactly.
But the fact that I could provide documentation that said this is how solid this buyer is. They're already underwritten with the lender. All we need to do is order the appraisal. So just sign the document. You want to do the right thing, right? Sign the document, sign the offer, and tell us we got it.
Right?
Yes. And that's usually how it works. But that makes a big difference. Huge difference. And the other thing I will say, some people make a common mistake. Like, this is funny. We've talked about this before. But buyers, please, if you're in escrow, don't do anything weird, like open up another credit card or go buy a new car.
Or have someone
take
gift
a big
you
trip.
money that can't be documented. You can't just have I'm dealing with so many of these right now. These deposits, right? Lots of families, it's kind of like a pool of money. Your money's my money, my money's your money. You need $20,000, here's $20,000. Oh, I need $30,000 now. Just give it back.
Right.
And then you just can't paper trail it all, and it makes it really difficult. So don't go buy a new boat. Don't get new cars. Don't close accounts. Don't stop working. I had another client recently who was in the process and then just retired a week before closing. And so when we did the verification of employment, the employer said, he's
gone.
He's gone. He's retired now. What?
And what happened in that situation?
Did
they not close?
Right, because the Social Security isn't enough for him to qualify.
Right. Wow. Bless his heart. And he didn't know.
I know. So you don't change anything.
Right.
You know, just keep it copacetic.
Can I still work for another month and a half until I close my house? Yeah. And then I can retire.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello.
But it's kind of crazy. But literally, like I had a client once who decided, I don't know, it was around Christmas time. I think I'll just pay all my employees like a little bonus equaling about $100,000.
Oh my gosh.
You think
that
there
didn't
goes
your assets and reserves.
Exactly. So that's kind of, and then they were like, oh, well, we'll get it back. And I was like, yeah, but not during the loan process. We have to it's like we had to start over.
Yeah.
So, and that's just kind of what you have to know. So The tip of the day, the real estate of mind tip of the day is don't change anything if you're in escrow.
Right.
Just keep it together till you close. And then afterwards, then go get the boat or whatever. But most people are like, I'm now going to be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the rest of my life. So there is no boat. There is no going out. There is no doing anything.
But it's really not that way. You know,
It's
so
not
many
really.
people think when they buy a house, they're going to be house poor and never be able to do all
Right.
those things they want to do. And that's so not the case. The reason to
Exactly.
buy a home is for a much bigger goal, right?
Right, absolutely, because
Yeah.
there's tax write-offs, and
Yes.
you can't even explain. Now, granted, the tax laws have changed, and there's not as generous of a write-off amount. However, there still is stuff you can deduct,
Right.
and
And
it's still-
appreciation.
and appreciation.
So yeah, all day long, this is a good investment, especially for millennials who we can't count on any Social Security in our future. So
Right.
how else are we going to have retirement passive income is to own property, own property, own property.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the phrase FIRE, financial independence, retire early.
Oh, I've never heard of that before.
Really?
Mhm.
FIRE. It's called the FIRE method. And I can't even believe I remembered that. I don't know where I pulled that out of
Yeah.
the sky from. I was like, yes, financial independence, retire early. And we'll get
Mhm.
right back to that. But I think we have a caller. So let's
Oh,
take
cool.
a call
Okay, great.
for Sam. Hi, this is Jamie with Real Estate of Mind. Who am I speaking with? Hello?
Oh, hi.
Hi. How are you? Who
Oh, am I free to the show?
you are. You're on the show. And who am I speaking
Oh,
with?
my God. Okay. Yeah. Hi, my name's Bella.
Hi, Bella. How are you? Welcome. And thank you
I'm
for
not
calling
too bad. How are you doing? I'm from Hawaii.
Nice, Bella. That's wonderful. So we have Sam the lender and Sam the saver on the show. Do you have a question for me or for Sam about buying or whatever about a lending question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is like the first time of buying, and I guess I'm very naive when it comes to buying. So I just figured, when is the best time that you can recommend for me to buy? I'm looking into like apartments, maybe a house. It just
Okay.
depends on, what we're looking for. But is there a best time?
You know, that's a really great question, and you're so not alone. And don't even
Oh,
worry.
good.
Don't even worry about being naive about it. Everybody is until they go through the process, and even sometimes when it's a third and fourth process transaction,
You're right.
they're still
They
naive.
don't teach you this at school.
Exactly. Every situation is very different. So I think the first thing is you would want to speak to a lender like Sam, and you want to find out where your finances are, find out what your purchasing power is. And then I suppose it would make a difference if it's going to be a primary residence, which is something you're going to live in, or is it going to be an investment property? Some people like to stay, like, let's say if you're in Hawaii, let's say you've got an oceanfront, gorgeous apartment, but you can't, afford to buy that apartment or that condo on the ocean, right? But you want to keep that view, but it doesn't mean that you can't make the step into investing, because maybe you get something that's more in town, not with the view, but something that has like sizable rents or something. So that is also a way to go about it. Yeah. So I think there's always a good time. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I kind of feel like my business, I call sometimes a fourth quarter finisher, because, even up in November and December, where it does traditionally get slower in our business, there is still real sellers and real buyers out there.
Always.
Yeah. So what you want to do is sometimes they're almost willing to negotiate even a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, spring, summer is the hottest time in our business. So there's usually more competition. There's more inventory sometimes, depending on the market. And, so that's just something you want to just ask yourself. And I would say, I'd say speak to Sam. Speak to a Sam.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to just make sure you've run through your finances, your income, your assets, your credit, and all of that with a licensed loan officer, just so that you make sure that everything will line up properly. So you don't fall in love with a house and then find out, oh no, how am I ever going to get it, right?
That's awesome. Does that help you out?
Yeah, God forbid.
Does that help you out?
It does. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you so much for
thank
calling.
you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Anytime. Call back anytime. We love having you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye. All right. We have another caller. So let's take another call. Hi, this is Jamie Austin with Real Estate of Mind. Who am I speaking with? Hello?
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Who am I speaking with?
Hey, good.
You're on Real
this
Estate
is
of
John.
Mind? John? Hi, John. How are you?
Awesome.
Great.
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're
good.
great. We're just talking about loans and stuff, hanging out, like trying to help people buy stuff.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like I came to the right place. I have a question about
Sure,
loans.
please.
So I was wondering, is it better, taking the current conditions into account, is it better to save up for a larger down payment, like 20%, so I can get better terms on the loan, or would it be advisable to pull the trigger now? If I've only got like 5% down for lesser terms, and then potentially refinance later.
That's a great question, Sam.
Yeah.
I'll let Sam answer that one.
Everybody refinances. Most people don't really keep their loan for more than like 3 to 5 years. I would say, my initial gut feeling is to just go for it. If you're comfortable with the payment and you can be approved for a 5% down loan, I would go for it, because you just don't know the amount of time it takes you to then try to save for that better rate, to do 10 or 20% down. You may then have something, the house prices may outpace you. And appreciate so much that at first you thought you needed 200,000 and now you need 225, and you're just always chasing that number,
and chasing
all
the
the while
market.
just paying a landlord and paying for their mortgage. You're not being able to gain in any of that appreciation, any of those tax write-offs or anything like that. So,
and not only that, but
yeah.
we can't predict like if the interest rates are going to increase either.
Right.
So like everybody who kind of sits back on the sidelines and thinks, I'll just wait. I don't think necessarily that's good, because if the interest rate rises even by 0.25%, that extra money that you were thinking you were going to use as a down payment, it cancels it out. So it's just like, go for it, and then refi.
Exactly. And then refinance later, because likely the house will appreciate, and down the road that payment will get better.
Yeah.
And as we spoke about earlier this week, Jamie, interest rates are trending down. I mean, over the last 40 years, they just keep going down, down, down. Yes, there are some little increases here and there, but even if you were to buy now with a higher payment because you're putting low down, I would expect you'll be contacted by another loan officer when rates go down again and your house is appreciated to get a little bit better rate, and it's going to continue to improve on you, I'm sure.
That's it. Does that answer your question, John?
Awesome. 100%. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks so much for calling. Appreciate it.
All
right. I think we have one more call. Okay, so let's take another caller. Hi, this is Jamie with Real Estate in Mind. Who do I have on the phone with me right now?
Hi, Jamie. My name is Jasmine.
Hi, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for calling into the show today. So do you have a question about lending for Sam the Saver or myself?
Yeah, I do.
Great.
So I'm looking to buy for the first time, and my parents are going to be helping me with the down payment.
Great. Nice parents.
And so, yeah, exactly. I have to pay them back, don't worry.
That's okay.
So, so what I'm wondering is, how does that work? I actually would like to put down, and it was their idea to put down more than 20%. So that's why they're helping me out with that down payment. They said, 30% down is probably better. How does that, how does that work?
That's a very good question. And that's great that you can even put more than 20% down. That's a very unusual situation for most buyers. But Sam, it definitely does bring your mortgage rate down. That's for sure.
Right. And your payment.
Right. And all that good stuff.
I think it's worthwhile to look into what would the payment be, what's the differential of your payment with 20% down versus 30%. If you're looking in $1 million plus category, then that's a pretty big significant difference in your monthly payment.
Right. If
you're looking in the 500,000 and under, it's probably pretty insignificant.
Right.
So but you also want to think
we're looking at about $1 million. About $1 million is my budget.
All so then 30% down.
The thing is, as far as will it bring my payment down enough so I've actually got to start paying them back too. So what I'm wondering is it worth it, with paying them back and paying my mortgage at the same time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends. First of all, for a lender, they don't want to know that you have to pay your parents back. So you can tell me anything on all day, but don't tell the underwriter that you have to pay them back. So it's a gift, right?
Right, it's a gift.
And
okay, yeah.
but the payment, it could be a difference of maybe $150, $200 a month. And that might be enough for you to say, yeah, I really want to do that 30%.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, I don't know what else you would do with that extra money, but there's a couple other things you should consider. Closing costs, right? So even though you have 30% down, you also have to have money for closing costs. And closing costs are an umbrella term for three things, okay? Lender fees, which would be like my fees. Escrow fees. Escrow is like a third party or almost like an attorney in other states that helps close loans and just the go-between. So they have their fees. And then the bulk of your closing costs are really your prepaid property taxes, homeowners insurance, first mortgage payment, mortgage interest, all this stuff. So all of that could be up to 3% of the purchase price. So maybe you're thinking your 30% is all in, but really you have 27% to put down and 3% you should hold on the side for closing costs.
Right. So that you have the money in hand. So if you don't have the money in the bank for the closing costs, you might take that gift and split it up and put it as much as you can on the property to, to lower what your mortgage payment is. However, keeping enough aside so that you make sure you have the closing costs.
Right. And Jamie, too, I think depending on a property that you find for a buyer, it may need some
work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you might want to put 20% down, have 3% for closing costs, and use the rest for
improvements.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like new paint or new carpet.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So that you're buying, so then you're not cash poor to do the things that you need to do to make the property livable and desirable, because that's a big deal. And $1 million property, good on you, girl. You go.
Yeah.
And thank you, parents.
Yeah. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you for the gift.
Thank you for the gift. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jasmine.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it so much for calling, and call back anytime.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Yeah, those were some great questions,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's really true. I think people think the percentage, that was such a good point.
Mm-hmm.
People think 20% all in, and they forget there's closing costs.
Yeah.
And you have to have those. That's what also during the loan process, they're looking at reserves. The reserves are what are going to get you to be able to close the loan and have the closing costs necessary, pay the prepaid taxes.
Right.
And the closing costs, like the documentation, all that stuff, like the city, county finance, all of that stuff that you're going to have to pay. All of that's looped in there in addition to the loan fees, escrow fees, and then the closing costs.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So that's really important. That was a good point.
Yeah. Not a lot of people realize that. Oh, I finally saved, like your second caller there. I finally saved 20%. And then I have to drop the ball, right?
Right.
But you also have to have closing costs.
That's right.
Oh, man. That's another 5 months, right?
Yeah.
Of saving.
Right. So
So-
that's, again, where we say have the plan. If you have the plan,
Yes.
there's no surprises in
Right.
the end.
Right.
Except the surprise of, I got a key.
Yeah. I finally get my own house.
Which
Yeah.
is really
Mhm.
awesome. And then you can start building your wealth portfolio, which is
Right.
what I love doing with people. So what is the trend, like, because we've got a really well-rounded show, I think. You've answered some fantastic questions.
Mhm.
What do you kind of see for the trend of 2020? Do you see, we touched on it very briefly.
Yeah.
You don't think the interest rates are going to go crazy down. They might tick down a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they'll stay a little bit about where they are.
Stable. Mhm.
So what do you think are the trends are for 2020?
I think that investors are still going to come out with lots of new products.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So there are lots of things are coming down the pipe. So after the mortgage meltdown, everybody was like zipped up. Oh my gosh, you can only do full documentation loans.
Right.
And now I'm seeing all kinds of cool stuff come out. I just saw a new program come out recently for investors that if the rental income is 115% of the payment, right?
Huh. Yeah.
Let's say the payment on a 4-unit property is $10,000 a month.
Okay.
But they can make $15,000 a month on
and they
rental.
can show that. Yeah.
You don't need tax returns. I don't care what their ratio is.
Really?
I have a client right now who's using this program. She's semi-retired and really doesn't show a lot of income, but she wants to make this investment and she should.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's
That's
a pretty
really
good rate, right? So there's
Yeah.
lots of new programs, lots of stated loans for self-employed buyers coming out. And there's lots of different levels of those. So it's not just, we have now stated, done. No, there's like so many different caveats with stated loans. So they're always improving. What else with 2020? I mean, we have an election.
Yep.
So
Be interesting to see how that
yeah,
goes.
I mean, on the last election, interest rates shot up 0.5% in one night.
Wasn't that crazy?
The next morning, I thought,
No, I know. Do you remember
no.
we had a buyer that we were working with?
Oh, yes.
And we had locked it in the day before.
Thank
and the second the
God.
election hit, it was like, he was like, I couldn't have done it if we hadn't locked it in the day before.
Yeah.
And it was like so many people were like, whoops.
Right.
I didn't pull the trigger, and they should have pulled the trigger.
Exactly.
But that's the whole point, is we don't know. We try to do the very best we can
right.
to predict and forecast.
Exactly.
But again, it's still a market, and it's volatile, and it's moving, and it's
Right.
fluid, and there
and
is
the
no.
thing is, you just have to know like what you're comfortable with, right? So a lot of people like to wait to lock their loan in, right? They
Right.
think, oh, well, I heard that rates are going down, right? They hear this on the news. I get this call all the time. I heard rates went down. Yeah, maybe by 0.1,
yeah,
but not from 4 to 3.5, not overnight, not unless there's an election that
Right.
went away. Maybe not the entire population expected.
right.
So I always like to talk to buyers from a point of, what are you comfortable with? If you're comfortable with this payment, then who cares what people are at the water cooler talking about? Oh, I have 3.5. Oh, you have 3 3/4. Oh, you should definitely have 3.5, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So long as your payment is comfortable, you lock that rate in, and then
You kind of think outside the
Yeah.
box and just take a step back and
Yeah.
look at the overall picture.
yeah,
Exactly. Okay, that makes sense. And then for the trends of 2020, I know that we talked about this, like even last year when rates dropped a bit, and I wanted to make this clear to our listeners and viewers, is that sometimes when the Fed drops the rate, it's not a direct proportion to interest rates for loans.
Hardly ever.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
But people hear that and they're like, woo, I'm going to now I can go out and buy.
Right.
It's not really that. What it does is it does help you with credit cards. It does help you with student loan debts. It does help you with things like that. But as far as going and getting a mortgage loan, that is something that's on a different market than the Fed.
It doesn't get affected by the Fed. The Fed affects the overnight federal funds rate, right? So home equity lines as well. We'll see a direct impact. If your rate was, let's say, 5%, they've dropped the rates. It's now 4 3/4. Done.
Right. Which is why you refinance. That's why you refinance and do that business.
That's a home equity line, right?
That's right. A home equity line.
Yeah. But if someone was in escrow today with me and they're locked at 4% and the Fed comes out and says they've lowered the rates, it doesn't mean that their rate is now 3 3/4.
Exactly.
That's been baked in. The Fed gives us all these comments and we know what they're going to be doing even before they say it.
Right.
So and there's so many other factors that go into interest rates and the volatility of them, given, the world and China and all kinds of different things that happen around that affect our rates. It's not the Fed that is controlling the interest rates for mortgages.
That's right. And that's a really valuable piece of information to know. So I want to thank everybody for calling in and asking great questions. What a great show. I love Sam the Saver. So Sam, if people wanted to get in touch with you, and Movement Mortgage is actually a nationwide company.
Yes.
So no matter what state you're in, you can look for Movement Mortgage and you can find a lender, but even Sam could probably guide you and get you the right place. So if people wanted to get in touch with you here in California, how could they reach you?
They could reach me on my cell phone. They could reach me by email or by my website. Do I need to give my phone number?
You don't have to give your cell number if you don't, but why don't you give your email address or how people can reach you though?
Yeah, you could email me at samantha.scherr, and that's SCHERR @movement.com, or you can find me on Yelp. You'll find me that way. And very easy. Always happy to help anybody. Just even try to talk about buying a home. They don't have to buy it right now, but just to have that conversation.
And also just to know that talking to a lender or even talking to a professional real estate agent doesn't cost you anything. Nothing. So I think people get a little scared off and they're like, well, I don't want to do that until I'm really ready.
Right.
And I'm like, don't wait. Just go and talk. Have the conversation. You might be 6 months out. You might even be a year out. But then again, you might just be more ready than you think. And you might just be about a month out, which is pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can jump in the market and go for a little swim, dip your toes in, get it going. It's all good. It's a good way to build wealth. I love it. So thank you. And again, this is Jamie Austin with Real Estate of Mind. You know that I'm here for you. This is what this show is all about. We're debunking and we're bunking up with people like, Sam here to show you how you can actually make this a reality and not just a dream. This is what we do. And, the buying process and the selling process can be a little overwhelming for some, but when you work with a professional like myself, we make it about as palatable as possible. That's true. So if you want to reach me, you can always reach me at jamie@thecityofangels.com. And you can also find us you can also reach us on Instagram at mycityofangels. That's my little handle there for the company. And I like to post things that are of value. These podcasts are on my website. They're also on the UB and Go network. You can find us there. And it's Jamie Austin. And we're going to sign off and happy holidays if we don't talk to you before next year.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for coming.